All right, everybody, the mute button down at the bottom on the left-hand side in the icons. All right, so it is 5 o'clock, and I would like to call this master plan update review for July 2nd, 2020 for the city of St. Mary's to order. And so just Mr. Horton. Mr. Horton. He was planning on being here.
Would you like me to check on him?
Yeah, he may be on mute button. In the meantime, Mr. Jones.
I'll go check on him.
And I heard Mr. Goodman. Let me see if I see Mr. Goodman. Yes, there he is. I see the white hair. Okay. And Mr. Gant. Oh, there's Mr. Horton. Thank you, sir. Okay. And so Mr. Riley and Mr. Rassi and Ms. Williams, and we have Mr. Hughes. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here on a warm summer's evening in St. Mary's. We had a 2-minute light shower over here, and it didn't do any good. It's still hot. So, Mr. Horton, are you there? Mr. Horton, can you hear us?
Mayor Morrissey, he's having a little bit of trouble right now. He can actually see everything, but you all cannot hear him.
Okay, all right. So what I wanted to do was have him introduce the quarterly town meeting process, but let me do that. And first of all, again, we want to welcome Kenneth Hughes, our Community Development Director. Kenneth is on here today, and he is going to take his first effort at walking us through the master plan update. And as you all know, in the public that may be online here, this is a combination of 2 segments, and because of the COVID pandemic, we've had to restrict this, but we have, like many people, learned to start working within the...
Robbie
has joined the meeting.
Okay, so anyhow, Robbie, I was just finishing a slight intro, but if you want to go and finish it up and then introduce Kenneth, and we'll go from there.
All right, sir, give me just 1 second. I'm having technical issues, so I'm trying to get it corrected. Can you hear me fine now?
We can. Thank you.
Okay, good. This is our quarterly town meeting. Mr. Hughes has put it together with the cooperation of other staff members. So we're going to take you through and kind of give you a status of where we're at with several of our projects and things that we've been working on. So with that being said, Kenneth has worked very hard on this. So it's going to be a little different from what we've been accustomed to. So we're going to see really how it's going to go. We may actually be looking at something better than what we've done in the past. So with that being said, Kenneth, you got the ball.
All right, thanks, Mr. Horton. So to really frame our discussion about today, it's important, and as Mayor Morrissey said, to really focus on this master plan, something that y'all have definitely emphasized is great that we're doing. What I wanted to start with was talking about what's really behind the master plan as the vision of it. So just real quickly, talking about One St. Mary's, our one vision and our one future. So we're just hitting the highlights here. We're a vibrant, welcoming, and friendly coastal community where residents play an essential role in our success. We cherish our environment, our heritage, and our role as the gateway to Cumberland Island. We proudly support our nation's security by maintaining a strong relationship with military forces who are our neighbors. We believe that all residents should have access to safe neighborhood, job opportunities, quality education, community services. And I know just how important that is, making the decision to come back to St. Mary's. And we envision a resilient community with a thriving and diverse economy, mobility, and recreational and cultural activities for all citizens. And that gives us our One St. Mary's. So the way that we're going to kind of focus tonight, we're going to break things up into the pillars that we're going to talk about. As the mayor mentioned, really combine 2 quarters. We're going to do economic development, resilience and disaster preparedness, our military relationship, and transportation. And the way that we're going to frame those is you'll see in the corner of the screen, make sure it's visible, is a little legend that tells you kind of where we are in that process. We'll talk about it. So when you're flipping back through, you'll be able to remember what we were talking about when we did that. So we've got our planned, accomplished items that are underway, or some things that right now are on hold for various reasons, or because of the current pandemic and the nature of things that we're going through right now. So with that, we're going to get started on economic development. And the first one Robbie's going to talk about. Robbie, I think you're on mute there.
Okay, here I am.
Yes, sir.
Implemented planned downtown improvements in accordance with CIP. As most of you know, we've got a lot of our construction with the shrimp project has been done. They've got probably 98% of the concrete has been poured here at City Hall. So they're winding that down with hopefully a completion date by the end of next week. I would give it another week, but that's just being very real about it with the way the weather's running right now. But we're really excited about it. We're seeing a very beautiful front coming out of the structure. And downtown is going to be compatible with that. And then we'll be back and we'll be doing the parking spaces all along St. Mary's Street and up Osborne, getting all that cleaned up, putting those final details in. So we're nearing completion and we're excited about that. The Wheeler Street boat ramp is complete. Kayak launch has been repaired from its initial launching. The Gateway Marina is in the design, is outside, are still finishing up the final touches on the design phase, and we're waiting state permitting on that. We should be hearing in the next week or so on that permit, and as soon as that goes in, we'll be able to let as far as the construction side of the house goes. So that's kind of where we're at with the improvements to downtown. We're looking at getting our planners and all that stuff back out, making sure all that's in order, and we're moving ahead with that.
So that first one, Robbie really got to talk that first accomplishment, but this next one, I'm going to steal some of his thunder for something he's been working on quite hard, especially when back, just a couple of months ago when he was fire chief, but improving our building permit process and doing improvements in our planning. And so one of the things that Robbie's had a good vision for, and that, I'm excited to jump on, is a unified permit for building projects and simplifying our fee structure. It's one of those things that we can do to improve our business services with everyone. And in the same vein, we're reviewing and revising the existing permit and license fee structure, including alcohol licensing, to support new and existing restaurants. So those are things that are at the front of my docket that we're working on at this point.
Kenneth, this is the mayor. Do you have any timelines for some of these new actions?
I'm expecting early fall to mid-fall, so August, September. Some things will either be going through Planning Commission on my side of the house or straight to y'all for the building side.
Okay, thank you.
This is, I think, Robbie's slide.
Thank you, Kenneth. Initialize the reuse and redevelopment of existing commercial and industrial buildings over the development of new projects where appropriate. The airport is a perfect example of that. Recently, we leased that to Subaru of America for use for storage of vehicles. They have made their payments consecutively. We received notice coming up on the third month at the end of the contract. They will no longer need that facility. We were able to keep the grass mowed and made our end of the agreement, and they've wrote the check like they agreed to, but that is coming to a head. But we're also, as a part of Mr. Jacoby's project, the aquaponics will be taking the north runway, about 70 acres. Details of that are being worked out, but they're very excited about that. It meets their needs and their specifications for what they're looking for. So that's a perfect example of being able to reuse and repurpose properties. Granted, this was a St. Mary's property, the city owns. But we're working with different businesses and trying to get that accomplished all down through downtown and, well, everywhere in the city. The next slide, just so Kenneth doesn't have to go through it again, better utilize the revolving loan fund for economic development. Most of you may be aware, Riverview Hotel was the first one to step up and try it. They were able to get $500,000 for revitalization of their structure, their building. They are very close to being completed. They have some final details they're trying to meet, but they're in there. They're doing fantastic business, and we're real proud of that. We've been contacted. Pardon me. We've recently been contacted by a second business that is interested in using another one of our vacant buildings and is interested in looking into that loan fund to be able to revitalize their building and bring it back to life and make something that we can all be proud of. Don't have all the details on that yet. It's still early on.
Excellent.
So the next item is to create a plan to revitalize Midtown. This plan should include events and activities in this area to increase activity, create demand, and foster investment. So really between Ware Point Peter Road to by the airport side in our Midtown district, our plan right now is to participate in the RSVP program like we did in downtown with the UGA in 2022. So that's one of those longer term items that we're going to be working on that, we're really excited about the things that are happening downtown that will push those things to be able to happen in that Midtown community.
The expanded the DDA facade grant programs for matching funds. DDA recently increased their amount. They were at $750 for a facade grant. They've recently increased that to $1,000, making it a little bit more open to step in and clean some things up. The next one is continue to annually prioritize the many suggestions of the RSVP and include the most appropriate and financially feasible suggestions in its annual work plan. The first phase of Orange Hall has been completed. We are working with them very diligently, the committee, and we are looking at the possibility of a fire sprinkler system now for the year that we just started today. So that would be the big kick. Once we get that sprinkler system in, that's going to open up doors for us to be able to do a lot more and get that structure revitalized. The other thing, we're wrapping up the shrimp project. That was a huge part of the RSVP. So that's kind of where we're at with that. The next one is identify what steps the city could take to recruit ecotourism business to St. Mary's. We are currently extending the East Coast Greenway trails, both on land and by sea. We're working with the ferry service between here and Fernandina. Fernandina has recently had their docks completed. We believe we have a means of being able to support them, but we're meeting with them over the next couple of weeks trying to get that finalized. And Mr. Riley has been working and keeping me on track with making sure we stay on track with this. The East Coast Greenway, we're working on a secondary grant, so we're trying to get that wrapped up as well.
And that really ties into this next one, to develop partnerships to support historical tourism and those related businesses. And so not even just the ecotourism, but all the different kinds that we can work on. So underway right now is picking up on a conversation, getting myself up to speed with Taylor and Main Street and Angela over in tourism to do a SWOT analysis to figure out what things that we can really exceed at and where are the big opportunities for us to be able to expand those means.
Kenneth,
working with public and private entities to develop.
Robbie, excuse me. I just want to, I just like to reiterate to what Kenneth said. I was recently in a historic town in North Carolina, and while they were able to have a state program run the area, a lot of what was done initially, like our history walk, was in place. It wasn't anywhere as extensive as far as the timeline and the number of plaques, but that was a very successful direction when we spoke to some of the guides about how you educate and let the people know about your city and what else might also be in the city over and above that particular tourism item. So, if we can expand off of all of that, and whatever you come up with, I think it's going to be good.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Work with public and private entities to develop the aquaculture industry in St. Mary's, including identifying harvesting locations and support facilities, including the Weed Street location. I've already mentioned, the aquaponics airport at the airport site. There is still activity at the Weed Street location. We've also had a couple of inquiries about that as well to possibly help that along, and I'll have more details on that a little bit later. Work with the owners of Kings Bay Village to update and redevelop the site. Recently, during this time that we haven't been able to talk, there's been a change of ownership of that, and we're trying to give them an opportunity to kind of settle in before we reach out to them and have further discussions. But that is our intent to do that in the very near future.
So the next subject that we wanted to focus on was resiliency and disaster preparedness. As many storms as Robbie has written out for this city, he's going to cover the bulk of this this topic. So I'll let him take care of those things.
Just kind of bring everyone up to speed. We have initially had our initial meeting on the hazard mitigation plan with the Camden County EMA. Kenneth is heading up that group for the city, which is critical. That hazard mitigation plan opens the doors for all kinds of grants, hazard mitigation grants, resiliency grants, and our disaster preparedness. We do have existing plans that work hand in hand with Camden County EMA, and we go through those on an annual basis. But we've also made an application. I can't remember if we did it prior to our last meeting on this or not, so I'll go ahead and say it again. We did put in for the CBDG-DR, which is Disaster Recovery Grant, back in April. We haven't heard anything on that with COVID. It's kind of slowed that whole process down, but we're holding and crossing our fingers and saying our prayers, and hope we hear something from that very soon.
Yeah, it was never like that was a quick process to start with CDBG.
Never is.
So
tide
Robbie,
gates on stormwater.
right? I'm sorry, Robbie, question. So the CBDG disaster recovery grant could be used to work on that concept for the river wall to help with tidal flooding? Is that one of the concepts?
The one we put in for is for the seawall along the waterfront. Basically to extend the one that's at the park and extend it down to the gateway property.
Okay.
But it will not stop all flooding.
No, understood.
I want to make that real clear, because we can't stop what God puts out. That's the way it works. But it will mitigate a lot of the flooding issues that we have every month. So that's the intent.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Install tide gates on stormwater outfalls. Again, referring back to the grant I just mentioned, that's a big component of this as well. Also, it is one of the projects that have been considered by our stormwater task force. So we are working in this area diligently. Okay, acquire low-lying wetland areas for flood water storage. As you may remember, we recently purchased property. The use of that property is for what we refer to as the spine project. That is to allow us to have a place for the stormwaters when they come in. We've got an area that we can funnel the water through the city down into it. It's already a natural low-lying area, but it's for future planning and development and for the protection of our city in the long haul, way down the road when all of us are gone, and for our kids. So that has been one of our efforts that we have been able to accomplish. Install green infrastructure, low impact development practices to address stormwater runoff quantity and quality. Policies and procedures are being developed by Stormwater Task Force. The Strength Project is a perfect example of this very item. So that is still very much underway. Develop a prioritize CIP for making stormwater repairs recommended in resiliency study and stormwater master plan. This is also being as a part of the Stormwater Task Force. As everyone knows, the task force right now, we've kind of put that on hold due to COVID. And as soon as we get through this phase, or get through with COVID, or get where we can actually all sit down in a room together and have a conversation in length, we will certainly get back on that. But right now, it's kind of on hold due to COVID. Okay, expanding the current drainage system maintenance program. We've got 2 crews basically working on this on a daily basis, as long as the world's not falling apart. As far as sewer and everything else, we don't need all hands on deck for that. But they are working on it. They're making their way around town, cleaning the ditches, and trying to help with the drainage issues that we're having.
So the next one I'll put back up on is participating in a countywide resiliency plan that is consistent with the county plan and national incident management system for disaster response, recovery, and redevelopment. So one of the things, this really goes into two separate areas, working on how we're going to respond to disasters. Something I'm getting my team very quickly up to speed on, make sure that, as fresh as my office is, we're able to do that response as were necessary, and the other offices in the city, but also working on flood risk, a project that we've been working on with the Nature Conservancy for the past couple of months to really ensure that we understand where our flood risk is, and that really transitioning into a project that y'all allowed us to put in a letter of support for just the other week to work on a resiliency work plan that will put in place the priorities and scopes for future projects. So what are those easy picks that we can accomplish and have the greatest impact, and really figuring out things that we need to start in order to make sure that we're as resilient as we can be with what we have.
Continue coordinated emergency management response with SUBASE Kings Bay and Camden County. That is a ongoing thing. It's almost when things are going on, i.e. like we've had with COVID, it's almost a daily communications chain. SUBASE Kings Bay is tied into that Camden County EMA, and we communicate on a regular basis. Kings Bay, Naval Base Kings Bay, the commanding officer also sits on the committee with the mayor as far as the decision making when it comes at a time of emergency. So we're interacting on a very regular basis with them, and they will continue to be.
So the next project that we have is really utilizing our NOAA sea level study findings and future required updates to the Camden County Joint Comprehensive Plan. So the Camden County Joint Comprehensive Plan was really completed in the past, I think last year or the year before. But one of the things that we haven't been able to work on quite so much yet is evaluating the possibilities and working on our flood ordinance to make sure it's up to snuff, not just from the minimum life safety, but what are the easy things that people can do when they're constructing their home to ensure that it's going to stay resilient. It's not just meeting the current code, but that it's going to meet what we're going to need down the road, and doing it at this time when it's the cheapest it's ever going to be. The cheapest it's ever to become resilient is right now. And so we're actively working on that. So I'm excited to really get my staff up to speed. But that was one of those things that did get delayed because of a staff change in our department. One of the things, though, that we were able to accomplish, that, one of the first accomplishment I get to say without ever actually having to do anything, was getting our community rating system class 6 attained. And so as a class 6, we qualify for 20% reduction in flood insurance. So anyone that lives within a regulatory floodplain where they are required by federal law because they have a federally backed mortgage or receive some federal funding to have flood insurance on their property, they have a 20% discount because the city participates in. Our plan calls for us to move to a class 5. We do have an audit scheduled for later this year in September or October, where we're going to continue to work on those things. And it's really one of those things that ties in so nicely with the other projects that we've got going on. So I'm glad that, we're not creating this system that we've already got a good thing going on that. That kind of wraps up our resiliency and disaster preparedness. The next kind of key topic that we wanted to cover, squeezing all these things together, is our military relationship. So Robbie's going to kick it off talking about the JLUS.
Right after taking this position as an interim, we had an initial meeting of the JLUS that had been kind of quiet for several months, and we all agreed that we would get back into regular meeting schedule. Then COVID has hit. It has slowed it all down. We're still talking via email, phone calls, and things of that nature, but we have not had an organized meeting due to the COVID. But it is the desire of all participants to sit down again and get into the JLUS and look at the recommendations that are needed. Kenneth will be playing a part in the JLUS. Surprise, Kenneth. But we are still actively working on it, but it is, right now, it is kind of on hold due to COVID. I'm sorry, Mr. Goodman.
The acronyms are confusing to people. And, you know, it's like JLUS.
Joint Land Use Study is what the JLUS refers to. And I thank you for that, Mr. Goodman. I appreciate that. I take it for granted a lot of times. But that is in cooperation with the United States Navy as it relates to the Navy base and the properties around. So that's what that's referring to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Work with the SUBASE Kings Bay and our regional partners to cooperatively address additional traffic within the navigable channels. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. They keep the channels open for obvious reasons, and that's where I know it is right now. And to be honest with you, I haven't had an opportunity to really dig into that one.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason this, ends up where it is in the master plan is what had previously been proposed for the mill site. And so really the things that were going on at that time really did influence this character of it. And with that, we're ensuring that development on the previous mill site and at the airport is coordinated with the sub-base leadership. So right now we're going through, in fact, yesterday we sent a letter as part of what we, in our office, we refer to as Mylan. It's the military installation land use notification. So as part of state law, one of the few laws that really only applies to us, and a couple of other counties or cities is when we have a land use proposal within 2,000 feet of the military installation. So in this case, the base, we have to notify the base at least 30 days before. And so one of the things that we're working on right now is we provided them notification along with supporting materials in order to identify any concerns that they may have for them to be able to be operation ready and maintain national security, as whatever's happening at the mill site, or as the airport, we have the restrictive use easement, which Roddy and I had a discussion with their community planning liaison officer the other month to make sure that we're understanding of what that restrictive use easement really means and what possible uses there are for that site because it is so critically close to SUBASE Kings Bay. And that kind of wraps up our military relationship section. The last section for this evening is transportation. So get it kicked off. We're going to put two of them together, 78 and 79. So modifying the existing golf cart ordinance to meet the goals outlined in the multimodal transportation plan and developing specific golf cart regulations along with educational materials that allow for use on designated streets. So yes, 10 different people. What the golf cart rules are in St. Mary's, probably going to get 13 different answers. And so it's one of those goals that's been identified. It's on the front of my docket. Hopefully the middle of fall, we'll have the final ordinance workshopped along with the implementation plan to make sure that we're really performing an education first, to make sure that whatever things that we're going to implement are done so that everyone understands why we're doing something. And that's going to be a lot of work on our part to figure out where the gaps are and where we can loosen some things up and ensure that everyone's safe on our streets, because that's our number one goal at the end of the day there. One of the projects that I've got Katrina in my office, she's our GIS planner. She is working on identifying and mapping all known city rights of way and easements. So as you can imagine, there are books and books and drawers of paper maps showing different information about where the city either has a right of way or there's an easement that exists. And so one of the projects that she's working on and that she picked up previous GIS planner was mapping those items. And you can see a draft of that work on the GIS website, the city map.
Hey, Kenneth, this is the mayor.
Yes,
Could we go back to that item for a minute?
Yes, sir.
And so this is pretty interesting, and I didn't have a chance to ask you in advance, so my apologies, but it shows my ignorance here. So first of all, I think it's a great program, and it really will help builders and homeowners and everyone. But can you, and to keep it concise, but could you talk about the difference between a rights of way and an easement? Are they significantly different, or is it nuance?
It's more nuanced in the legal sense. Rights of way generally confers the ability to do conveyance, so moving people or vehicles along a property, whereas easements are generally you're going to be focused on utilities or stormwater, making sure that the water drains off or that we can put our sewers in the right place. So the rights of way are generally going to be what's in front of your property that we all drive on, while in your backyard and surrounding on your side yards, you're going to have easements so that the power company can run power to you while also running power to the next house over.
Gotcha. Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Identify funding for the implementation of Tabby Trail. The Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Grant application. I believe we're actually working on the next round. If I'm correct on that, Mr. Riley may be able to confirm that. We're also definitely working on the TAP grant for the Winding Road engineering part. The grant that we were awarded for tying in that last section along there. Bobby Marr has got his hands into it and is keeping it in line and keeping us on task. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, Robbie, with respect to the GOSP grant, that is correct. We are working that. And we've also, maybe you're going to mention this, but I will in case you don't see them, is the CRC grants where they were available, they're no longer available now. The Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Program awards grants, but during the 3 years that it was active, we won grants each of those years and have constructed the Tabby Trail Ruins rest stop, upgraded the one over there at the park off Point Peter, as well as expand the trails to 10 feet, about 4 miles of the trails to about 10 feet, which is the just width that they have to be to qualify to be designated East Coast Greenway. So hope that helps. Thanks.
Well, Dave, thank you. The thing that I was going to mention, Mr. Horton, is really there's a double, if not triple advantage winding road effort, because it's an entire neighborhood that will provide a really safe walking condition from Charlie Smith Senior Highway to Coleraine, right, Dave? Is it the whole way?
That is correct, and it's the key to connecting to the East Coast Greenway on the north side,
Right.
And that'll really enhance the economics and tourism in the downtown area, as well as
Good job today.
area.
Yeah, I know there's a safety issue that we've doubled up on and working to let the community know that there's an added benefit of why we really want that to win that grant so that we can really proceed. And that's what, 1.5 miles or 2 miles, Dave?
It's 2 miles, and we actually were above the line last year, but due to funding restrictions, we got put back below the line. So we're hopeful this year that we'll be successful and get the engine up. And I'm sorry, I'm talking about the 4 miles of Tabby Trail that takes you up the Crooked River. So we're going to apply for this second phase, which is the construction. Probably next year. We're not going to try to apply for it this year because we've got to get the engineering and have the design drawings ready to show for that.
Thank you.
Upgrade intersection St. Mary's Road and State Road 40 Osborne to incorporate greenway elements. We have reached out to try and acquire a piece of property to be able to do that. We've kind of hit a couple of roadblocks. We're looking at another piece as well, but we're trying to find the right spot to incorporate those the gateway elements. I'm sorry, right there at Spur 40 in Osborne, St. Mary's Road in Osborne. I'm sorry.
This is the last test there, Robbie.
I'm sorry, what?
This is the last one. I'll let you talk about this last accomplishment.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Consider local safety projects for submittal to DOT or GDOT for funding through the lump sum safety program. We're looking at roadway striping and intersection improvements have been accomplished already using GDOT support. And to be very frank and honest with everyone, GDOT this year has really taken care of St. Mary's. We're seeing the high mast lighting going up at the interchange there at exit 1. The Hawk signal that has been installed at the right there at St. Mary's Middle School, that has been a project that the first time I sat in as interim city manager almost 6 years ago, Mr. Riley and myself sat in that meeting when it was all introduced, and it has been a continual project and has been a topic of conversation. Each year we've gone to Atlanta to sit down at the table with GDOT. But that is it's installed. You can watch Facebook. In the very near future, we're going to do word on the street and maybe show you a little bit about how it works and a little bit of explanation there. But they're also at exit 1, they're working on the drainage in that area. They're also working at the plantings, if you will, the bushes, and they're even working on the trees, the ones that were dead. They went in, pulled out, and replanted. So there's been a lot of activity through GDOT. It has been a fantastic partnership this year, and we're very appreciative of everything that they've done for us. So that's kind of where that one's at.
So that really wraps up this kind of abbreviated Q2, Q3 master plan update. I know I'm happy to take any questions that y'all may have and see what we can work on together.
You know, Kenneth, this is the mayor. One observation, and it may be in the master plan, was mention of the National Park Service in Cumberland Island. And obviously their waterfront, they're still working on the federal funding to be able to rebuild the docks and all that go with it. So we do have the continued support at the gateway dock of the ferry. But this just begs the question if if we need to pay attention to something relative to the Park Service and its on our relationship with the Park Service.
Certainly.
We have been kept up to speed on a lot of what's going on with the Park Service as it relates to the effects COVID has had on the system. Just to remind everybody, the Cumberland, the ferry going to Cumberland is up and running. They're not carrying a full load aboard the boat, but they are getting folks over there, and it is being utilized, and we're seeing traffic again of visitors coming back into St. Mary's to go to Cumberland. The reconstruction of their dock area is in progress as far as the paperwork and everything like that. We should know something very soon as far as a timetable on when that is going to be done. So just FYI for everybody's information.
Well, just for planning ahead, we're probably only about 5.5 years away from the park management plan review of the Cumberland Island Ferries transit to back and forth to its debarkation. I guess that would be the right way. Anyhow, they're docks. And as you remember, about 5 years ago, we had a concerted effort to remind the Park Service that St. Mary's is the only location for that ferry to go back and forth that makes any sense. So I know it's 5 years away, but we do some long-term planning, and that's one of the little tick marks, Kenneth, that you might want to keep in your mind when we, talk about the Park Service and preparing for the future. We don't want any surprises. We want to be ahead of the game.
Robbie?
Yes, sir.
A while back, we talked about the North River area, Poggy Town. I can't think of the name of the street.
Finley.
But you said there might be some grant money available to.
We are working. Kenneth and I have already had conversations on that, and Mr. Marr.
Okay.
We're looking at some of the projects that we can accomplish. It was done once before. They went after a grant, but we're working on it. That grant doesn't roll out until April timeframe, but we're working on it now, trying to get things in order so we can do some work in that area. Look at some drainage issues and maybe some road issues. The infrastructure primarily is what we're looking at in those areas.
That would be great. It needs a facelift, and the folks were very excited when we had the little town hall meeting there about maybe having some of this work done.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Keep that on our radar. Thank you, Artie, for the reminder.
Okay. Mr. Moderator.
Hello.
Moderator Goodman.
Oh, yes, sir. You're a little fuzzy, Jim. So I'm sorry, we're having a little trouble hearing you.
Golly, I put a shirt on because Deborah Walker Reed said I needed to. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we can hear you. Do you want us to look at you?
That's up to you. We do see, Robbie, the city crews doing a good bit of ditch maintenance in the areas that we tend to ride around in, and the resident here in downtown going out every morning and afternoon, and I compliment you on that. I do want to be sure, even though I don't ride out there as much, that there's a particular ongoing problem in the Crooked River Estates plantation area, Crooked River Plantation 1 and 2, and I hope they're getting their share of the ditch maintenance and pulling and mowing and the drainage areas out to the winding river cut through ditch there. I hope all that's on schedule too.
It is, sir. It is, and I guess it was about 5 months ago. I haven't been out there in the last couple of months, but we had crews out there actively working, and I made several trips out there myself just to look at it and see what was going on. When we added that secondary ditch crew, we've got some folks that are either I think it's rusty is the issue, at handling the traco and getting the feel for it. If those of you that may know, when you get into those kinds of pieces of equipment with hydraulics, it has a tendency to, you have to learn to feather it very, very easily. And it's a feel that you have to acquire. We had a gentleman out there that was working, and he had some real issues at getting that feel on that particular piece of equipment. I believe he's gotten better, but they are still on our list, and we haven't forgot anybody.
I appreciate that very much. One more thing while I have the floor here. There's ongoing problems with the garbage contract. I do want to say that part of the problem goes back on the citizens when they put mixed trash out at the curb, and the grafter comes along and they cannot pick up the mixed stuff. I fully understand that. You cannot have rolled up carpeting and a toilet, ceramic toilet, mixed in with your leaves and biomass materials. And I think we need to do a better job of educating the public on that. I've actually intervened in 1 or 2 cases where the neighbors have called me and said, I'm tired of looking at this pile of trash. And I go by and look at it, and they are mixing up all kinds of stuff. And yes, the grafter man cannot mess with that. So that's part of the problem. The other part of the problem is Advance met with us and things improved for a time. And now we seem to be slipping back into the same kinds of scheduling and equipment problems. I will tell you that I support bringing that back in-house at the earliest possible opportunity that we can afford to do it. That is one of the needs that St. Mary's has. It will improve our economy, keep the dollars at home, and then we will have control. And I personally feel like when the garbage man looks at you in the Winn-Dixie or in church, he's going to have a great deal more pride or a great deal more shame, depending on how he's doing his job. I yield back to the moderator, and thank you for listening.
Yes, sir. Duly noted.
Thank you.
We're on it.
Okay, everyone, thank you very much for your input, and I thank you for the public that's been listening in. Kenneth, I want to thank you for shepherding us through your first quarterly review of the master plan, or actually 2 quarterly reviews. So the next one will be probably much easier. All this one I think was very, very smooth, and we appreciate the homework that was obviously done by you and Mr. Horton. So I want to alert everyone, which I think you already know, but we have a council meeting at 6 o'clock on Monday, July 6th, and it will be a phone conference council meeting. And I believe we have executive session, Mr. Horton. And the executive session, right? Okay, then the executive session will be video. That's been our standard process, and it's obvious one that whether you call it a surge or an uptick or whatever, that the COVID pandemic is alive and continuing. So we're being very cautious, and Mr. Horton and I and numbers from the health district have been putting out the message, just encouraging everyone, as has the governor with his fly around of the state, to please wear your masks in public as much as possible. Practice the social distancing and wise management of whether or not you're in crowds that you think are safe. It's still very important. And we're working on trying to get some of the state data that comes to download directly onto our website so people can see it. We don't get quite the same information that some of the Florida counties are able to get and break it down by zip code and all that. It's not readily available, but there is some information that I think we'll be able to have download on a regular basis, or else have you be able to click through to, as a citizen or council to be able to get to. So we're going to work on that. But in the meantime, I wanted to wish everybody a happy 4th. I know it's a little bit different, and we'd all like to have that festival. I know I would. And we're going to do it next year. So, Mr. Horton, you want to close down, please?
Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful 4th. Please be safe. We encourage everybody to be safe.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the weekend. I will talk and see you on Monday. Bye-bye.